Welcome back to our lesson of MySQL again. In this lesson, we are going to learn about creating tables by using MySQL and PopSQL. Well, as MySQL is just the server which we are going to run our MySQL commands, so we are going to work on PopSQL, which is a lot like a text, a text editor, but which is like directly connected to the internet so that it is directly connected to the server too and also works directly through that. So first off, if you want to open up or make a table, then obviously you're going to need a couple of commands in PopSQL, which is kind of like the same thing which we use in HTML and PHP process. So let's start off by typing in a couple of things. Let's say I'm going to type in int. Now you can see how int works. Well, int is going to be our whole number. Okay, so this is how the whole number works. Then we have is decimal. I'm going to type in decimal. I'm going to cut this off. You have this decimal too. Then we're going to do is open up varchar, which is like this, which is the string of text of length 1. Then varchar, then we have is blob. You can see blob is like this, which helps you to use binary language object, stores large amount of data. Then we have is data directly like this, database, okay, which is something which is a lot similar, database to XML, but here I'm just going to use data. And then we have is timestamp. So make sure to keep it like this, stamp. We have is timestamp. Now you can see that it is selected like this, and if you like remove or like don't hold shift anymore, it's not going to be like this, which is going to help you to place in the like date and time, month, and all of those, which is used for recording. Okay, recording the like database. Now if you want specific type of database, you can type in over here. Let's say I'm gonna type in 10 and maybe like 6. Okay, now we have our definite like database. Now let's say I'm gonna put in 300 over here, close in the bracket again, hit on enter, and then let's go to blob and type in our binary language. Then here I'm going to do is go down over here. You can put in a large amount of database, and if you want to put in date and timestamp, you can also do that too. So this is kind of like the basic. Okay, so let's say the types of data which you can like fill it with the attributes. So to create a table, then obviously you're going to need a couple of commands, which are through which PopSQL is going to get those commands and also make you the table. So let's say I'm going to do is create table. And I can see that it is a different color. That means that there is a command which is assigned to this. So let's say as I typed in create table, now we have our command. Now let's say I'm going to type in student or whichever one you want. Let's say student, which I'm going to use student, and then I'm going to do is open up my bracket. I'm just going to open up my bracket now, but later on I'm going to put in my codes. Then I'm going to do is put in a different column or different row. So to do that, I'm going to do is type in student ID over here. Let's say type in student name. We have our student name, but make sure to like put in underscore because it doesn't support like spaces. Student name as we put in that. So I'm going to type in int, which is like this, and then primary key. Make sure to keep that. So here I'm going to do is int, which was the code, and put in primary key, which you can see is like this. And then I'm going to put in a comma. Now I'm going to do is press like this, and which is the primary key, which has been recognized, and then hit on enter. And then I'm going to do is open it up the name. Let's say I'm going to type in name, and let's say I'm going to make a varchar. And we have is our varchar or varchar. I'm going to do is put in the attribute. Let's say I'm going to put in 300 characters or 3000 characters. You can just put in the characters, and only then you will be able to put in the limited amount of data in this varchar. Okay, then you have to think like what amount of data you are going to put. But if you use like let's say 30 characters, so it's going to take only 30 characters. So what I'm going to do is keep 30 characters, which is also the person, and I'm going to do is type in major. I'm going to put in varchar. Now as I've typed in varchar, which is also like this, I'm going to put the same thing over here. You can put in like that. Let's say I'm going to put the same thing over here. Let's keep it to be 30 30 characters. And then we have our table structure. And after we have our, primary key, so I'm going to do is copy that again and put it over here. So I'm going to put or close up this primary key, Control X. I'm going to put this over here, hit on enter, press on primary key, which is over here. And I'm going to do is open up my bracket again, and let's say I'm going to type in student ID or student name, which is over here, student name. And then we have our student table or this table. So I'm going to do is close it off again. And to close it off, I'm going to do is first our bracket and then semicolon. Then we have our structure. Now you can see that this is a different color because it has recognized this, specific, line or specific structure. Then I'm going to do is, put in my queries. So if I want to put in my queries, obviously I'm going to need a couple of things. And after that is put, what you're going to do is run it. Now you can see that it has run and also given me the table and all of those all together. So as this thing didn't work, what I'm going to do is going to be adding in our more content or adding in more of our table. So let's start off with something else. So let's say here I'm going to put on and use the code of select, and then I'm going to hit on enter. And now you can see that this is a code, and I'm going to put on country code this time, country. And then I'm going to do is underscore and then put in code. And as I have my country code, I'm going to put in a comma, hit on enter. And then here I'm going to put in count. So here in count, you can see that this is already a command. I'm going to put in 1 inside of it. So there's going to be 1 country code on each of this table. Then I'm going to do is going to be from the city. So I'm going to put in this like this, from city. And as we have our city, I'm going to hit on enter. I'm going to put in group. We also have that code or command, group by 1. And as I'm done with that, I'm going to do is put on the limit. So I'm going to put in limit and then type in, let's say 20. That is going to be 20 characters. So I'm going to put in semicolon, and that is the end of this part. So here I'm going to do is use scatter charts. Okay, I'm going to put in this, and I'm going to put in scatter chart, scatter, and then I'm going to put in chart. Now we have is our scatter chart. Here I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy all of it. Let's say from here, I'm going to press on Control C and paste it over here, Control V. Now we have our country codes and all of those too. But here what I'm going to do is change it. So here on our country code, I'm going to put in the year. So let's say I'm going to put in independent, INDEP underscore year. So as our year is this, I'm going to put the count to 2. And from, let's say, I'm going to put in the country. Then what I'm going to do is, let's say, from here, I'm going to change it from group to where. Then I'm going to put on independent year, which is this, from country, and where is independent. Press on V. Then we have is our content over here is the year. Then I'm going to put in after, let's say, 1900. And as I've put in my 1900, now I'm going to group it by 1. So I'm going to put the group over here and end it over here, or end the structure. And I'm going to put is group by 2. So as I've put in group by 2, I'm going to end it with the semicolon 2. Hit on enter. And I'm going to put in another structure, double of this. And then I'm going to put in line chart. Now I've put in my line chart. Now I'm going to do is width. Okay. So C, hit on enter. I'm going to put in my command over here, which is going to be a bit different this time, which is going to be with hours as chart. Hours as, open up your bracket. Now as I've opened up my bracket, and I'm going to do is extend it a bit more, and inside of it I'm going to put in my command. Let's say I'm going to select, and then here what I'm going to do is generate series. We have our generate series over here. Cut this off too. And I'm going to put in my command inside of it. But first off, I'm going to do is put in more commands over here, because obviously I need more database or data over here. So let's say I'm going to do is date, TRUNC. Well, we have our date trunk. So here I'm going to open up my parentheses or my bracket and then put in quotation in between. I'm going to put in hour. And as I've put in my hour, what I'm going to do is put in a comma, and then let's put now. So as I've put in now, it's going to give me now result. Open up your bracket again. And as I have my bracket open, the next thing what I'm going to do is put in a hyphen, and then I'm going to put in my code and do the interval. Put in a quotation, single quotation, not the double quotation. Inside of it, let's say 2 days. Now here, as I have 2 days or 2 day, what I'm going to do is hit on and space and 2 colons over here, not semicolon, 2 colons over here, and then type the interval. Now, as I've typed in interval, I'm going to put in another comma, hit on enter, and put in more data over here. Put in the same thing, data, date, TRUNC, date trunk. I'm going to open it up. And here I'm going to put in the same thing, which is over there, which is hour, but I'm not going to put in interval anymore. So what I'm going to do is copy this whole content up till here. Control C, put it inside. Now, as this has been done too, I'm going to put in a comma at the end. So next I'm going to do is hit on enter. And I'm going to, obviously put this over here. Control C, Control V, 2 day. And our trunk and also our interval. Then put in a comma if you want to, but I'm not going to suggest you to use the comma in between. Then I'm going to put is another command, which is going to be as hours. So I'm not going to close off our bracket yet because I'm going to need it later on. So I'm going to do is put in another bracket and then close it off. So I'm going to hit on enter as we also have our bracket over here. So after that, I'm going to put in as hour, okay, as hour. Then this is the end of the structure too. And we don't need to put a semicolon at the end. So I'm going to put in another space. Here I'm going to do is select. Now as I have my select, I'm going to put in hours. Now as I've put in hours dot hour, so I'm going to do is put in a comma, hit on enter. I'm going to put in random, open up my bracket, and I'm not going to put anything right now. So I'm going to do is going to be putting up a star, which is going to be something like this. Now, as I've put in that, I'm going to put in 2000. Let's say I've put in 2000 as metric because you're going to need what attribute you're going to put. So I need that as metric. So I'm going to do is for hours again, or from hour. Okay. And put in a semicolon. Now, as that is the end, now I'm going to put in other queries. I'm going to put in other. And then queries. But before that, I need to put in double of this hyphen. Only then it will turn into a command. And make sure to keep it capital because this is also case sensitive. Other queries, I'm going to put in select again. Select and the star over here. And put on, hit on enter from country. Now I'm going to put in semicolon. This is the end of the structure too. Hit on enter. I'm going to put in select again. Select. Put in a star. Like this, put in a space in between them. Now from city, what I'm going to do is where from. Hit on enter, where, country, code. So as I put in that, I'm going to do is hit on equal and then put in whichever country you want to use. So I'm going to put in, let's say I'm going to open it up, and here I'm going to put in Asia. So as I've put in Asia, what I'm going to do is, as I'm done with this whole thing, let's run it. Now what I'm going to do is run it, and you will see that it is fetching my data. And then we have our table over here, which is explore SQL. And you can see SQL, this is showing me all of the content over here. But if you want to see the data and the chart over here, you can also see that how it has already made up my chart. And you can see that this is how it will look like. This is all our metric. So this is how it is actually going to look like, okay? So this is basically how you'll be able to create your table in POP SQL. So let's move on to the next lesson.